Going to Oh, did I just start recording now? Oh, brilliant. That's okay. So this curious mental phenomenon on page 37 is the accession of the mind and the allergy of the body. We're aware of it, but we drink anyway. So in the top of 37, second paragraph, I circled insanely trivial excuse. I can drink at anything. So know that there is never really an excuse for another bender. It's just what we drink at. I'm drinking at my loneliness. I'm drinking at my financial situation. It's never a good enough reason to pick up again. But that little voice in the back of our mind convinces us that, darn it, I've earned that drink, or you drink if you had that happen to you. And we go straight back to self-pity as our default. Our sound reasoning failed to hold us in check. And again, we know better, but we do it anyway. The insane idea wins out. If we give in to the thought and do the next action of picking up the drink, the thought wins. But if you intervene with the thought, you don't take the action. And that's part of what we're trying to get across here, is to be painfully, astutely aware of when your brain is going into the looping zone, when you're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, when you're irritable, when you're discontent, when it just starts to seem like it might just be a good idea to pour one. At that, we should recoil from from a hot flame, not just from the alcohol, but from the idea. That is the point where us relapsers need to intervene. And as I was explaining the other night, we have taken this short cut to instant gratification so many times in the past years during our drinking time that it's our go-to. It's our go-to to celebrate. It's our go-to in despair. It's our go-to in depression. It's our go-to for just about anything to not feel. To not feel our feelings. So what we're doing in here in step one is we're rewiring our brain circuitry. So we're not going to be like that rat on the maze, pushing the lever over and over again for the sugar water on the shortcut. We're going to take the long way round, feel our emotions, and get to the healthy, better, sober way of living. But we've got to repeat going up that path over and over and over again before it comes our go-to route. Does that make sense to you? When you've been alcoholic as long as I've been and relapsed as many times as I did, I gave myself permission here to take the shortcut. And now you're aware of it, I want you to really listen to your brain. And every time that thought comes into your head, bam, you gotta stop it and go back to your toolbox and intervene with that thinking. And it's been proven by doing that, you're creating healthy new behavior patterns. You've destroyed the impulse control part of your cerebral cortex if you've drunk as long as I have. It's gone. So every day I wake up alcoholic and I've got to learn a new behavior. And AA reminds me that I've got to stay in this program and I've got to recommit every morning because I'm alcoholic again. And if I follow the behavior that is suggested in this book, then it, as promised, becomes a working part of the mind. I no longer use that shortcut. You guys with me? Okay, I'm getting lots of nods. That's good. So here you see where he didn't intervene. Jim did not intervene. He did it. He was aware. He'd been committed to the asylum. He knew he was going to lose his family, but he did it anyway because he never stopped it at this stage. And that I want you to really reflect on, because that's the point where you're going to stop your next relapse. In some circumstances, we're now on 37 mid-paragraph, we have gone out deliberately to get drunk, feeling ourselves justified by, and these are character defects. Okay, I've written that in the side here. I usually put CD as an abbreviation for character defects. Nervousness, anger, worry, depression, jealousy, or the like. All the things that were the selfishness that we have inside of us that we're fighting against. But even in this type of beginning, we're obliged to admit that our justification, circle that word, our excuse for a spree, a drinking event, was highlighted insanely, there it is again, insufficient in the light of what always happened. We know the foregone conclusion of what's going to happen, but we pick it up anyway. We now see that when we began to drink deliberately instead of casually, there was little serious or effective thought during the period of premeditation of what the terrific consequences might be. So in this paragraph, they're describing a slightly different type of a binge, which is basically you hit the F it switch and you just go for it anyway. It's not premeditated. It's just you get the idea and you don't even try to stop it. Or you deliberately self-sabotage it, rather your recovery, and think, well, I'm going to drink anyway. I might as well get it over with. And then if you think like I did, well, I've had one, I might as well finish the bottle. And well, there happens to be a second bottle, so I might as well. I've had one bottle until I pass out. And then the whole cycle starts over again. What is that? Insanity. Bottom of page 37. Our behavior is as absurd and incomprehensible with respect to the first drink as that of an individual with a passion for, say, jaywalking. Okay, this is one of my favorite descriptions in the book, the jaywalker. Now, what you're going to read, and if you've heard this before, we know it's absurd. But I want you to just be thinking about your own behavior with a view now as ridiculous as what I'm about to read. He gets a thrill out of skipping in front of fast-moving vehicles. Now, you'd call that insane, wouldn't you? He enjoys himself for a few years in spite of friendly warnings. Up to this point, you would have labeled him as a foolish chap having some queer ideas of fun. Luck then deserts him, and he's slightly injured several times in succession. Okay, let's just relate this back to your drinking career. So, have you ever gone on a bender and then woken up not realizing what these marks are on your body or what happened to your teeth or why your face looks the way it is? And you go, I don't know how that happened, and then you do it again? Kind of like jaywalking, isn't it? You would expect him, if he were normal, circle normal, we're acknowledging we're not normal, to cut it out. Presently, he is hit again, and this time he has a fractured skull. Within a week after leaving the hospital, a fast-moving trolley car breaks his arm. He tells you he has decided to stop jaywalking for good. But in a few weeks, he breaks both legs. Now, this would sound comical if it didn't feel quite so familiar. On through the years, this conduct continues, accompanied by his continual promises to be careful or to keep off the streets altogether. Finally, he can no longer work. His wife gets a divorce, and he's held up to ridicule. So in other words, the rock bottom just keeps getting lower and lower and lower. He tries every known means to get the jaywalking idea out of his head. Rehab, meetings. He shuts himself up in an asylum, isolates, hoping he to mend his ways. He's gone to rehab, he's isolated. But the day he comes out, he races in front of a fire engine That's like leaving rehab and you've already been plotting the last week you're in there how you're going to use again or how you're going to drink again. The insane idea already started there. See what I'm saying? That's where we should have talked about it to our counselor. That's where we should have piped up and said to somebody, I'm going nuts here. I'm in rehab and I'm thinking of drinking. I'm already planning, but we don't want to because we think we might just get away with it. Do you understand the insanity of this sort of thinking? But the day he comes out, he races in front of a fire engine, he breaks his back. Such a man would be crazy, wouldn't he? So my racing in front of the car is the same as every time I choose to pick up again. And I think this extreme example is excellent. And as they say, for its ridiculousness, because of what it shows me about my own behavior. So when you're reading the Jaywalker, I want you to really personalize this to your own behavior, because in later homework, we're going to be defining insanity. So really mark in your margins here, definitions of insanity. This is where the insanity is really stressed. Now we're on the second full paragraph of page 38. You may think our illustration is too ridiculous, but is it? We who have been through the ringer, so we who've been through this whole thing like you're going through, have to admit it. If we substituted alcoholism or using anything for jaywalking, this illustration fits us exactly. Can you guys see that? However intelligent we are in other respects, where alcohol or a substance we're abusing is involved, we have been highlighted strangely insane. And then this very powerful last line. This is strong language. But I ask you, isn't this true of you? Be really honest with yourself. And can you see the progression that happened here when he was going through this first attempt? He had his family, and then the jaywalker starts off just injuring himself a bit, and then he convinces himself it's not so bad until his back's broken. This is what we allow ourselves to do if we don't intervene. So noticing the progression of your sprees, if you want to call them that in our old language here, is super important, because the next one you do might just take you out. After all, you're an alcoholic like me, and you haven't been at this for 5 minutes. So I have this really weird notion that somehow I was invincible, and that when I took that first drink, in all honesty, I didn't know if I was going to get behind the wheel of a car or drive or not. And I certainly had no control over whether I was going to kill somebody on the drive up the farm road here. So now we're at the bottom of page 38. Some of you are thinking, yes, what you tell us is true, but it doesn't fully apply. We admit we have some of these symptoms, but we've not gone to the extreme you fellows did, nor are we likely to. In other words, we're looking for the differences from how you're not like me, how you're not like Bill, how you're not like Bob or Fred or Jim or the jaywalker. You're not looking for how very much alike you are. We're making excuses because we really don't want to have this thing. But until we totally accept that we're one and truly an alcoholic, we can't really get through step one. For we understand ourselves so well that what after you've told us, such things cannot happen again. Yeah, I've been to enough AA meetings that I know myself now, and I'm not going to do that again. I don't need to go to so many meetings now. I've got this thing. I've been sober a few months. I've been sober over a year. No, there's no chance of me drinking. I don't have to do a big book study. I don't have to do the steps. I've heard this, as I'm sure you have, thousands of times preceding the next relapse. There's one program and one program only in AA, and until we do it thoroughly and thoroughly experience these steps, the program is not finished. And we may stay dry during that period, but if we keep fighting every notion that's in this program, our progress is going to be a lot slower. We may ultimately get convinced, but why am I fighting it? Why am I standing in my own way? Why don't I just try this thing and do it as is suggested? Heaven knows I put enough work into my drinking career. Why won't I remove my own obstacles in my mind and just embrace this thing and give it my best efforts? Aren't I worth it? So, okay, so we admit we have some of these symptoms, but all. We've not lost everything in life through drinking, and we certainly do not intend you. Thanks for the information. So I have written next to this, it hasn't happened, and in all capitals, yet. You may still be married. You may still have a roof over your head. You may still have money in your bank account. You still may be able to provide for your basics. But I can tell you now, it's a progressive disease. And just keep, as my sponsor likes to say, lowering my standards and then failing to meet even those. Oh, I'll never take the morning drink. And then I failed to meet that standard. Oh, I will only get drunk on the weekends until I started drinking during the week. Oh, I'll never take the morning drink until I did. So no matter where you are on this scale, it always gets worse. And it just hasn't happened yet. So you can keep testing it. Everybody's free here to go out and keep experimenting. But I kind of think it's like millions of people have figured this out. Why am I being so slow to accept it and give it a full go? So top of 39. That may be true of certain non-alcoholic people who, though drinking foolishly and heavily at the present time, are able to stop or moderate. Underline that. Are you able to moderate? Are you able to stop? Or does the occasion come where one is never enough and they just keep coming and you don't say no? If you're an alcoholic like me, you don't refuse top-ups, you don't refuse the next drink, and you certainly don't leave any wine in the bottle or box until you pass out, and then you do it all over again. Okay, it says their brains and bodies have not been damaged as ours were, but the actual or potential alcoholic, with hardly an exception, will be absolutely unable, and notice the italics and highlight it, absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge. What is that? Another definition of powerlessness. We're unable to stop drinking. It's really quite simple. You take the test often enough, and there'll come a time where you just can't stop because we're alcoholics. This is a point we wish to emphasize and re-emphasize. He's saying, pay attention, you guys. This is super important. You hear this. To smash home upon alcoholic readers, that's us, it has been revealed to us at a bitter experience. So then it says, let us take another illustration. And we're going to get into Fred here. So I'm going to stop on Fred the accountant. So that is the middle of the paragraph of page 39, and I'm stopping the recording there.